As we gather this morning, and anytime we get to a morning like today, where there's like a new beginning, and obviously New Year's is a marker on the calendar, it is always such an opportunity, I think, for many of us to look forward. Some of us do the New Year's resolution things, but even if you don't, I think all of us are sitting here and we're looking forward, and there's things that we're hoping for, right? There's things that we're dreaming about, things that we're trying to make plans for, there's steps we're trying to take. And I think it's so important for us to be people that kind of look forward towards those things. But in my life, it's also been equally important to look behind me and to look at the year that I just kind of walked out of. Because if I think back to a year ago from today, I was making plans, I had ideas, we were trying to start a church. I mean, all these things were going on. But as I reflect back on the last 12 months, I always just recognize that yes, there were things I was planning that came together. There was things I was hoping for that I made some strides in. There was plans that I took the next steps in, and I'm getting closer, and a lot of good things happened. There's also things where I was just completely surprised by God. Oh, I thought I was going here, but now I'm here, and this is way better, and I'm so thankful, or things that just exceeded my expectations. I'm sure, like me, we also had the unexpected, things that happened that weren't great, that we didn't know were going to be part of our 2025. I mean, we can even begin with early January when the fires kind of ripped through our city from Pasadena into Palisades, and just the destruction that caused, and the pain and the suffering and the anxiety. I mean, Happy New Year 2025. I can think of things in my life and with my close friends and family and real areas of pain and suffering that happened that were just unexpected. And when we look back, I remember, and I know this, but I forget it literally every single day. But when I look back, it reminds me of how little control I have of the things that are in front of me. It is such a reminder that, and I know this, but I forget every day. And I look back at this last year, I'm like, man, I have such little control. And yet I look forward, and it doesn't mean we stop planning and we stop being strategic. And no, we do all those things, but we try to do so being open-handed with, but I don't know what's around that corner. I don't know what's around the rest of my day today, let alone next week, next month, next year. And so a part of me lives in that reality. On one hand, I recognize that I have very little control of what's ahead of me. With the other hand, I recognize that I'm walking into the unknown. I don't know what's around the corner and the bend. And we live in the reality of that tension, right? And so the question is, how do we navigate that tension? How do we live and exist and continue moving forward knowing those things? The good news is that the Bible, Scripture, God talks a lot about that reality. In fact, the majority of the Bible is about this reality of us looking forward, not knowing what's ahead of us. And yet what God invites us to is that not only can we step forward into the unknown with confidence, we can do so carrying hope and joy and peace and love and purpose in spite of what other circumstances we might find just around the corner. And the word that the Bible uses and that God uses time and time again is this word faith. That how do we move forward? How do we step forward and carry hope with us? How do we move forward and carry joy with us? God uses that word faith. And for us this morning, one way to define that word faith, it's this idea that we can be people that step into the unknown, but how we can do it with all that hope and confidence, we step into the unknown by drawing close to a God who is known. That's that gap, right? There's only so much we can see. We don't know what's around the corner. So how do we go there with confidence? Because we trust the God that seeks to be known, the God that draws near. Everything we talked about during the Christmas season, God draws near. That's this idea of faith. And so the question is, what does that practically look like? How do we actually do this and implement this in our day-to-day life? How do we step into this new year with a deeper sense of faith so we can move towards whatever it is this year has for us? And this morning, we're going to be looking at a moment in the history of the Israelites and a part of their journey. It comes out of the book of Numbers. Before we jump to those verses, in case you don't have, the Bible memorized, I'll give you a bit of a timeline on what's been going on to kind of catch us up to the book of Numbers. what has happened, where we find ourselves in Numbers, is God's people, the Israelites, they find themselves and they are on like the precipice. They're on the edge looking into the promised land. And the reason it's called the promised land, sometimes the Bible makes it simple. This is a land that God had promised. So there it is. That's why it's called the promised land. God had promised them this land. About 2,000 years before Jesus was born, God goes to this man named Abram. And we find this story in Genesis 12, in case you want to take footnotes. 2,000 years before Jesus was born, God goes to this man named Abram and says, out of you, I'm going to make a great nation. And the reason I'm doing this, Abram, is I want this nation to be a blessing to the world. So meaning, as people come to know you and this nation, they're going to know me more. I'm binding myself to you guys. So out of you, they're going to understand what it means that they are loved. They're going to understand compassion. They're going to understand mercy. They'll understand holiness and purity. So it matters how you live. So I'm going to form you into this nation. And to be a nation, you need a land, and they didn't have a land. So God tells them, I'm going to give you this promised land. And he tells them exactly, this wasn't like vague. He goes, no, this is exactly where it's going to be. And these are the coordinates, and this is what's going to look like. So he tells them that. 200 years later, this nation has begun to form, but they find themselves living in Egypt, and then they suddenly find themselves enslaved. And for 400 years, they spend their lives enslaved, and they're being oppressed, and they're being tortured in Egypt. And in fact, there was a decree that went out from the king of Egypt that said, hey, any firstborn males that come out of the Israelites, throw them into the Nile River. Like, we need to get rid of the Israelites. That's what they were experiencing, and they're crying out to God to be rescued. They're crying out to God to be taken from this place and brought to the promised land. So God calls a man named Moses and says, Moses, go. I'm going to use you to rescue my people, bring them out of that land, and take them to the promised land. And so Moses goes and rescues the people, and they begin this journey towards the promised land out of Egypt. This journey took somewhere between 6 to 12 months. We can just call it a year. It was about a year-long journey. They're making their way, and God is using this time very intentionally. God always uses our time intentionally. They felt they were wandering. God was doing work. And what God wanted them to know and to understand was more deeply who he was. That he was a God that was going to draw near, that he was a God who was present, that he was a God who was going to protect, he was going to be a God who provides, and he is a God who guides. And so along this journey, they see God draw near in tangible and real ways. And not only that, God wanted to continue shaping them and forming them and preparing them for what he had next, which is to enter into this promised land and become this nation that's going to represent me to the world. So that's what's been going on, and we find ourselves in the book of Numbers chapter 13, and they're on the precipice. Are we all tracking? History lesson okay? All right, I didn't lose anyone? Great. I always ask that question. I don't know what I'll say if somebody goes, I have no idea what you just said right now. Oh my God. I probably just start over. Numbers chapter 13. The verses will be on the screen. We see God come to Moses. God is still using Moses to lead these people, and he gives Moses this instruction. He says to Moses, send some men to explore the land of Canaan, catch this, which I am giving to the Israelites. Important note, he's telling them, this is your land, but send some men to explore the land. From each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders. They had 12 tribes. This nation is 1 million people at this point, right? This is not a small group of people. It's not a little community. It's a big nation. They had 12 tribes. Grab a leader from each tribe and go and explore this land, which I am going to give you. And so God gives some instructions on what they're to do. Verse 18, it says, see what the land is like, whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good or bad? What kind of towns do they live in? Are they unwalled or fortified? How is the soil? Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees in it or not? And do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land. What an interesting thing that God is doing. He's told them about this land. He's told them there's trees. He's already told them this land is good. But he has these 12 guys go, and he says, go into the land and go explore it. God wasn't doing this because he got lost on the way to the promised land. And he's like, hey, can you make sure we're in the right place? If you lived and existed in the time before GPS and iPhones and MapQuest, when you're in the back of your dad's car and you get lost and your dad's like, go into that gas station and ask him where we are because we're totally lost. That's not what God is doing. God isn't sending them on like a recon mission of like, okay, tell us where all the tribes are and where all the people are, and make notes and make me a drawing so God can figure out, okay, now I know. That's not what God is doing. This isn't for God. This is for the people. Because what God is telling them is pay attention. Pay attention to everything I've been telling you. This whole journey, I've been telling you about this for generations, for 600 years. I've been telling you about this promised land. Now go taste, go see, go look, go explore. I'm giving you a glimpse and a picture. See, what it means for us to be people who walk in faith, it means we keep our eyes open and we pay attention. We pay attention to the things God is telling us. We pay attention to God's promises. We pay attention to the things God is calling us towards, right? And then there are times when we look forward and God's like, pay attention. Look, see. I'm going to give you a glimpse. I'm going to give you a picture. The walk of faith is one where we keep our eyes open, and yet somewhere along the way, we got this misnomer that what it means to walk in faith is we, turn our brains off and close our eyes, and we put a blindfold on, and we run into traffic, and it's okay because God loves me. And it's like, where did we get that notion that the life of faith is one where we close our eyes and shut our minds off? Time and time again through Scripture, God says, no, faith is believing in me, trusting me, paying attention to me, and then using what I've given you. Your minds, your eyes, your ears, your wisdom, your discernment, the Holy Spirit. I have given you things. To walk in faith means we walk with our eyes open, and God is giving them a picture, an opportunity to see. And what God is hoping, just as he's been trying to do this entire year with them, that the more you see, the more you'll believe me and trust me. And the more we believe him and trust him, the more we're able to walk in faith. That's what God is doing. So he sends them, they go for 40 days, they go explore. It's everything they'd hoped for. They see all the things God wanted them to see. And they come back after 40 days and they begin to give this report back. So down to verse 27. It says, they gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. And that phrase gets used a lot in the Old Testament. It's meant to connotate abundance, like just the land of abundance. It's the land flowing with milk and honey. It has everything. It has animals, it has trees, it has plants. So when you hear that word, just think abundance. And again, remember what they've been experiencing. 400 years of slavery, a year on this journey through the desert, and now God is giving them a picture, abundance. This is what I've been preparing you for. And they bring back some of the fruit. Here's the fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We saw the descendants of Anak there, and those were like, the bullies. Those are scary people. Those were like, gladiators. We saw the descendants of them there. Okay, they're there. The Amalekites are there, who live in Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, they live in the hill country. And the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. This is an accurate report. This is exactly what God said. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. He said there's going to be people there. In fact, he had said who was going to be inhabiting that land. And so the reality is this is the right report. This is a land of abundance, but there's going to be challenges. And now look at the two different responses we see. It says and Caleb was a part of this group. It says Caleb silenced the people, and that just means he got their attention. He wasn't like, what? But he was like, hey, my turn to talk. So he silences the people, he gets their attention, and says, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Caleb is seeing the reality. He's seeing it clearly. Yes, this is it. Yes, there's some challenges and there's some struggles, but we should go because we can do it. This isn't the friend that we all have that's like, let's go. And you're like, oh, hold on. No. This isn't like blind faith. He's not going to run out blind. No. Caleb is seeing it. He's paying attention. He sees the challenges, but he also sees God. And that gap between his understanding of like, yeah, this is going to be difficult, and his trust of God, that's faith. That's that gap. It's not fully making sense. I don't know how this is going to go. There are people there. This is going to be challenging, but let's go because we can do it. Why? Not because of us, but because we trust God. And God has been telling us again and again, go, go, go. This is your land. So Caleb is trying to walk with faith and trust. Here's the other response. But the men who had gone up with him, so these are part of the other 12 tribes, this is what they say. We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites, so this is like the million other people, they spread among them a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. Look at how this conversation has shifted. Look at this language. It went from they're strong to the land devours people in it. All of the people we saw there are of great size. So now we have giants suddenly. We went from there's a lot of people and they're strong to now there's giants. They're going to devour us. We saw the Nephilim there, which was this group of like crazy, scary people. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Meaning when we got near them, we looked at ourselves, we looked like grasshoppers compared to how big and tall they are. And when they looked at us, they're like, oh, we could just squash you with our foot. They got themselves to a point where they saw, they couldn't understand how this was going to happen. And instead of using that gap to say, I'm going to keep my eyes on God when I can't see what's in front of me, they instead got stuck, and I'm only going to look and pay attention to what I can understand with my own mind. And that led them to a hard stop. And not only that, they began to exaggerate everything going on. See, what it means to walk in faith is we walk with our eyes open, we pay attention. What it means to walk in faith is we see the challenges clearly. We see the challenges clearly. Caleb saw the challenges clearly. He wasn't minimizing. Some of us in here are minimizers. You're the people that are like, no, it's all good. And this is not optimism, right? Optimism is good. Like, no, I'm going to be positive. No, this is like, I'm not even noticing it. I'm not going to look at the challenges. This is Amen, who at 24 would get credit card bills, and I'm just like, if I don't open the credit card bill, it doesn't really exist. This is denial. This is avoidance. This is, I'm not even going to, that's what minimizers do. And when you minimize, well, then you don't need anything because there's no ever problems and you don't need anyone's help. You don't need God. You're just keeping yourself in this box. That's not what Caleb's doing. He's seeing the problems clearly. Yes, this is going to be difficult. What the other groups is doing is they're maximizing. They're exaggerating. And I don't know if it's intentional or not. I know this happens in my life when there's challenges in front of me and suddenly they start becoming much larger than they are and we begin thinking they're so much bigger, and now you think it's just me alone and me again, and everyone's against me and everyone wants me to fail, and you start maximizing these things, right? And it's so difficult to walk forward in faith if we're not seeing the challenges clearly. If we're minimizing, if we're maximizing, exaggerating, it's so difficult to walk in faith. That's why it's so important to be people who walk in community. It's so important in my life that I have people around me who are praying for me and praying for the things I'm seeing up ahead in front of me. It's so important for me to have people for me to process and talk with and get wisdom from. And in my life, I have people that are part of this community who are sitting here who give me wisdom and understanding. And I'm like, are we saying the same things? Our team does this with me? Did we notice that? What are we thinking? But I also have people in my life that have known me 20, 30 years. They've known me at my best. They've known me at my worst. They know my biases. So when I go to them for wisdom, they're like, it sounds like you might be maximizing this, man. I have people that are helping speak into that because we all have biases. And it's hard to walk forward in faith if we're not seeing it clearly. Caleb is seeing it clearly. There are challenges. This other group comes to the end of what they can understand, and it leads them to begin exaggerating. And the overflow of that we're going to see here in a moment. They spread that report, And then in chapter 14, verse 2, it says this: all the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron. Aaron was leading with Moses. And the whole assembly, I can't even imagine how many, this is like a town hall meeting suddenly. The whole assembly says to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. See, what they are experiencing and being confronted with is this reality, and I hate to break some hard news to us, it's this reality that the walk of faith is often uncomfortable. The walk of faith is often, by and large, mostly very uncomfortable. We want comfort. We want safety. We try to create comfort and safety in our life, right? And how you're comfortable is if you know everything ahead of you. If you have the script, if you have the plays, I'm going to run these plays. I'm not going to deviate. I'm going to be a robot. I'm just going to do this and do this and do this. And when I don't need anybody's help because you can't do it like I do. So I'm going to do it. It's all on me, all on my shoulders. And we cast this illusion that now I'm comfortable and now I'm safe. It's false. We like comfort. We don't want to be uncomfortable. The challenge of that, the problem of that is the life of faith is often uncomfortable. And when you get to those crossroads, which you might be in this morning already, you're looking out at some things, you're seeing the crossroads, you might be feeling some of these things that this is feeling challenging, I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. We have one or two options. We can choose to lean in and trust God, which we're going to see Caleb trying to move us that direction, or we can respond this way. And when we're uncomfortable, it can often lead us to places first that are full of fear. Why did God do this to me? Why did God bring us here? Why didn't we just die in Egypt? We should have just died in the wilderness. We begin kind of moving out in fear. And when this happens in my life, I can tell because my stress level starts going up. I can tell because I can tell I'm grinding my teeth at night when fear is coming into my life. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm fine here, I'm smiling, but when I walk out this door, I'm withdrawn. Those are my red flags. Uh-oh. Something is happening. I'm at a crossroads because I'm starting to respond in fear. By the way, it's not like once you get on the faith train, you're just on the train forever. This is happening simultaneously in my life. I'm walking in faith here, but there's something going on over here, and I'm responding in fear. When we get to those crossroads of being uncomfortable, we can start responding in fear, and it manifests in different ways for us. The second thing we see in what I do is let's get some control. Things are getting out of control. Let's get a new leader. This isn't working. These guys aren't working. I'm going to grab some control. And I do that in my life as well. And usually the problem is I can't control this, so I'm going to control this. I'm going to really control this. I'm going to go all in. And they're like, why? No, this needs to. You get so out of shape on something over here because that thing is out of control and is starting to feel uncomfortable. And instead of walking in faith and trusting God in the uncomfortable, we try to move to control. And the last one, and this is so common and so damaging, is when we get to those places of being uncomfortable, we can find ourselves stuck and we can start sliding back to places that feel familiar, that this feels familiar, but are often so damaging for us and our lives. And they'll make things worse. What do they say they want to do? Let's go back to Egypt. Oh, the place you were enslaved, oppressed, where they were literally killing your children? You want to go back there? Why? Because it's uncomfortable and we want to draw back towards something. Egypt was familiar. It wasn't good. This is awful for us. This is falling back into old patterns, old habits, old sins, but it's familiar and that feels good for a moment, even though ultimately this is going to cause so much more harm and damage in my life. Well, we knew Egypt, they would give us a house because they needed us alive. They would feed us because they needed us to work, so at least let's go back there. See, when we get to those places of being uncomfortable, the walk of faith is uncomfortable. For me, these are the red flags in my life. Uh-oh, fear is starting to grip me. I feel myself not sleeping. Something is going on. Uh-oh, I'm grabbing a ton of control. This is a red flag for me. What's going on? Where is that crossroads? Where am I missing and not trusting God? I'm falling back into old patterns, old habits, old things because I can control this. Even though ultimately this is for my harm and is going to make things so much worse. Caleb gives us the alternative view. He's trying to plead with this group of people. He sees all these red flags. He's trying to be the voice of wisdom and reason that we all need in our life of like, hey, buddy, calm down, take a moment. And he says in verse 7, friends, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. What God has in front of us, it's good. This is for our good. Yes, it's going to be challenging. Yes, it's hard. Yes, we're at that crossroads. It's getting uncomfortable. The walk of faith is uncomfortable. It's good. What God has for us is good. If he is pleased with us, meaning if we're walking in faith and trust of God, if he's pleased with us, he will lead us into that land. It's a land flowing with milk and honey, and he will give it to us. Only do not rebel against that Lord, meaning stop trusting that God is good. Don't stop trusting that he is there for you. Don't rebel. Don't turn your back on God. Don't try to run back to slavery when he is offering you freedom. Don't rebel against the Lord. And do not be afraid of the people because we will devour them. Their protection is gone. But the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. Caleb is saying that's God's problem. Because he told us to go there. He's calling us forward. So Caleb's like, I trust God. Don't be afraid of those people. That's not our battle. That's God's battle. He is going to solve that because this is where he's calling us into. Come back, the worship team back up. And so this morning, and I know for a fact that some of you are already seeing that you've been in the crossroads. You're seeing the giants ahead of you. You're looking at this year and you can already see the places where it's going to be hard. And the question I have for you is, what does it look like for you to draw closer to God in this next year? What does that mean for you as you think about your relationship with God? And what does it mean for you to draw closer? Maybe it's a men's night. Maybe it's spending more time in his word. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's finding the people that you need praying for you. What does it look like for you to draw closer to God in this season? Because we're going into the unknown, but we can do so by clinging to him who is known. And the more we get closer to God, the more we're going to understand that he is good and that he is strong, that he is present, that he loves us, that he's not leading us towards harm. He never said it was going to be easy, but he said he will walk with us. And what's on the other side is exceedingly good. So what does it look like for you to draw closer to God this year? And what does it look like for you to see the challenges that might be ahead of you and to see them clearly? To make sure that you are understanding what God has in front of you, that you are doing what you can to keep your eyes open, to say, God, I'm paying attention to you, God, but I'm paying attention to what's in front of me. So God, help me cover that gap because my knowledge is going to come to an end, my understanding, I can't fully see it, but what I can do is count on the God who is walking with us. Let's continue worshiping.